What's up guys, welcome to Monchkinz Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Monchkinz logging in to bring you another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and welcome back to another video guide. First of all, I do apologize that this video is late. Work has been slamming me. So anyway, today's video is going to be on Kadaj's Event LUFENIA fight. So before we do start, like and subscribe as always if you haven't already. It does help the channel and I would really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's start this video. Alright guys, so first off, let's talk about how you're gonna deal with the LUFENIA orb, which is pretty easy to be honest. Now unfortunately there's no cheese to this fight as far as I'm aware. You can still sort of cheese it with some, manipulation, turn manipulation and stuff like that, but that's not real super cheese, right? So anyway, talking about the LUFENIA orb, which starts at the start of the battle and will disappear once you hit less than 80% of their HP, and will come back when the boss's HP falls below 30%. You get 2 of the LUFENIA orb counter as long as the target has 1 or more debuffs. So pretty easy to deal with. All you have to do really is to bring any debuffer. Even if you don't have like a dedicated debuffer, as long as one of your characters can actually apply like an Imperial or something like that very consistently, you should be completely fine. Now let's talk about how the fight works, because I think there's a lot of things happening in this particular fight. First off, the recast ability. This deals HP damage obviously and can actually petrify you if the boss does not have a debuff, which is very important, which is part of the LUFENIA orb anyway, so you should be applying those debuffs. They also remove their debuffs at certain percentage. Basically, once you hit 89%, every 10% onwards, like 79%, 69%, 59%, 49%, they will remove their debuffs all the time on those particular HP thresholds. They also get a huge brave gain and will decrease the brave damage that you do at certain HP thresholds as well. These are at 79%, 49%, and 29%. At these HP threshold, they also refill their recast ability. Basically, it's not to the full, but they only will need 1 turn in order for it to fill up. The boss also can gain some brave regen, and they are immune to a lot of like debuffs that can possibly extend your survivability, like paralyze, sleep, confuse, HP silence, and terror. Okay, so now that you know about the fight, how are you gonna deal with all this? Well, the biggest thing here is timing your debuffs with those recast ability, because like I mentioned earlier, you need to have at least 1 debuff on them anyway with the LUFENIA orb. But the important thing is they have a debuff during their recast ability. Whenever that's filled up, you have to make sure that you don't basically go past the HP threshold and make them remove those debuffs and then they use their recast ability, because you will lose turns, and the turn requirement here is pretty tough to get if you don't have like a very strong damage dealer. So that is the biggest thing here, I think, is timing your attacks right, timing when you reach those HP threshold, which is it can be a little bit difficult at times because you don't know how much damage you're going to take unless you really pay attention. The other thing is obviously bringing instant break characters. They are definitely going to make your life a whole lot easier when it comes to those 3 HP threshold, where the boss gets a huge brave gain and reduces the brave damage you deal. Alternatively, you can bring like gravity damage dealers, like say the one that we're getting pretty soon, Bart's. Ultimisia is another choice, and X-Death is another good one with his LD, like you can reduce their brave to 0, I believe. So there are alternatives. They're probably not the best alternative, but they are an alternative nonetheless. Obviously, heals and shields to reduce those HP damage during those recast ability will definitely help with your survivability. Alright guys, so let's move on to characters that you can bring. Honestly, you can bring any character you want because there's really not much of a restriction in this particular fight. It's just finding the right composition for you. You can, as long as you can apply a debuff, you should be fine. I personally brought Sarah as my dedicated debuffer, but you don't really need like a super like dedicated debuffer. Maybe if you have Gladio in your team, you know, he can counter all the time and basically apply a debuff. So that means you're sort of safe in a way, but you have to be careful with those HP thresholds. So I mean, another one is Gabranth, you know, is a good dedicated debuffer as well, but there are a whole lot of characters that you can bring for this fight. Now, as for call characters though, I tend to bring like the instant break characters. I ended up bringing Jack, and I believe sorry, I didn't bring Jack this time around, which is funny because I think I brought like Ferris instead, but I think that was a mistake on my part, and I still bought Amethyst Lion because reduce, you know, the Brave down to 0, which makes it easier for you to break them. Caius can instant break. X-Death, of course, a good one as well, although you won't be able to use his LD call at this point in time. Other characters like Gabranth you can bring, obviously, if you need like a debuff here and there. Aerith, if you kind of die, you know, it's just still a good choice. Right, so moving on to party compositions, of course, the first one I would recommend is the one that I brought, which is composition of Sarah, Planet Cecil, and Golbez. The call team, again, I went with Amethyst Lion, Caius, and Ferris was kind of like a mistake here since Sarah can, you know, is my dedicated debuffer. I didn't really need her per se. I could have gone with Jack just in case I need you know, like a break. The important thing here, I think, in this fight as well is having a Golbez with their bursts as your support, because that burst effect will, you know, make it so that the enemies cannot get any brave gains, so they're always at 0 brave, which should make it so much easier to break them. My summon was Odin, but obviously you can change that. Now, another team that I would recommend is obviously having Terra. I mentioned, like, you know, if you want to do a little bit of shenanigans here and there, Terra manipulation is the thing to go because the boss cannot be delayed. So yeah, this is probably one of those teams where you insert Terra, you get multiple turns, you know, and see if you can get past those HP thresholds. Golbez obviously still here, Planet Cecil. Call team for this one is Aerith, Ferris, and Amethyst Lion. Golbez again for the support, and Ramuh for the summon. Now the last team is going to be Gladio with Kadaj and Planet Cecil. Having Kadaj here, basically you're kind of safe with all the mechanics, right? So if you can apply, obviously you're going to be applying his EX, you know, debuffs, which makes them like gold framed. That means they cannot be removed, so you should be fine on that end. And Gladio obviously giving you extra defense down and making sure you do a lot of damage with Planet Cecil's as well with his auras. But just in case you do need the break, you know, you've gotta bring Amethyst Lion once again, and Caius as well. Again, support here is going to be Golbez, but make sure you do it's a friend Golbez that has his burst weapon, and Diabolus for the summon. Alright guys, so we're finally at the end of this video, and of course I'll give you guys my final thoughts before we head off. Honestly, this fight is a little bit more freer, if that is even a word, when it comes to like making your party compositions. There's not a lot of restrictions, so you know, you can build your own team. as long as you can apply at least one debuff, right? The biggest problem in this fight is going to be the tight turn requirement, which is only 70 turns, and with the boss removing your debuffs all the time, it gets kind of annoying, and your damage tends to go down because you can't apply those debuffs and you have to keep reapplying them. And yeah, the HP damage is real as well. They keep doing HP attacks most of the time, so you do have to be careful there. They can also like double HP attack like one character, which makes it so much annoying, and so you have to in some shape, way, or form prevent that from happening. So like again, having a tank like Gladio can definitely help you in that regard. And of course, if you got Warrior of Light as well, you can prevent like HP damage. The problem is bringing tanks will obviously reduce your damage overall, so that tight turn requirement just keeps getting worse and worse, and having like multiple damage dealers, you can't bring too many like two or three damage dealers, because you will need some sort of support to heal through, to get through the HP requirement. So there is still some sort of like a restriction in a way, but it's totally up to you which character is going to be which. I do highly recommend bringing a very good damage dealer though, because yeah, I tried with just like a couple of supports and no real dedicated damage dealer on my first attempt, and that didn't really go down well. I mean, I didn't really have problems with the mechanics, it was just making the turn requirement. So overall, those are the things that I found like can make this fight very difficult. I would say though, because it's a lot more freer, it's not too bad, but I would say this is actually a pretty semi-difficult fight because of that tight turn requirement. And those are my feelings for this fight. So that is it for this video, guys. Please do remember to click like and subscribe if you haven't already, because it does help the channel, and I would appreciate it if you share this video as well to fellow DFFO players who are struggling to beat this fight, and hopefully this video helps them, right? Would really appreciate that. You can always follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at Monchkinz Gaming. Leave down in the comments below, of course, your team for this one. I would be pretty interested in teams without Golbez, let's just put it that way, in your main team, because I found that a lot of players actually use Golbez as their main damage dealer for this particular fight, and I mean, so did I, and I think he's the most effective one, but I would really be interested if you brought a different damage dealer. Anyway, that is it for me. This is Monchkinz logging off. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next level.